I was still wearing my black suit. It was wool, too heavy for a Texas September. The air conditioning in the church had been broken, or maybe just overwhelmed by the crowd. I could feel the shirt sticking to my back. The service had ended 45 minutes ago. The reception was starting at my sister's place in an hour. There would be ham sandwiches, there would be sweet tea, there would be cousins I hadn't seen in a decade asking me if I was still doing that accounting thing. I couldn't do it. Not yet. I needed a moment. I needed to be in the house where I grew up, just for 10 minutes, just to check the mail, just to turn off the porch lights, just to stand in the quiet and convince myself that Mary Ellen Davis was actually gone. I pulled into the driveway. The gravel crunched under my tires. That sound. It was the sound of my childhood. My father laid that gravel in 1971. He used to rake it every Saturday morning. I killed the engine. The house looked the same. The 3 massive live oaks were still shading the roof. The brick was still that pale, sun-faded red. The metal roof was still ticking in the heat as it expanded. I walked up the path. I reached into my pocket for my keys. My hand brushed against the funeral program. I flinched. I took a breath, put the key in the deadbolt. It didn't turn. I frowned. I pulled it out, checked the teeth. It was the right key. I've had this key on my ring since I was 16 years old. I tried again, jiggled it, pushed my shoulder against the wood. Nothing. It was seized solid. That's when I saw it, on the front window to the left of the door. A sticker. Bright construction cone orange. It was slapped haphazardly on the glass, crooked, trapping air bubbles underneath. Property seized. Trespassing prohibited. Violators will be prosecuted. I stared at it. My brain didn't process the words. I read them, but they didn't mean anything. It was like reading a foreign language. Property seized. Whose property? I stepped back, looking at the house number. 412. Yes, this was the house. A black sedan pulled into the driveway behind me. It moved fast, aggressive, kicking up dust that settled on my polished dress shoes. I turned around. A woman stepped down. She was in her mid-50s, navy blue blazer, white blouse, the kind of professional dress that screams authority but whispers insecurity. She had a blonde bob cut that didn't move in the wind. She held a clipboard against her chest like a shield.
"Sir," she said. She didn't say hello. She didn't offer condolences. "You can't be here." She checked a watch. It was gold, bulky. It caught the sun and flashed in my eyes. "The lockbox has been installed. The asset has been liquidated." Liquidated? The word hung in the humid air. "Liquidated?" I repeated. My voice sounded hollow. "This house belongs to Mary Ellen Davis. I'm her son. We just buried her. The dirt is literally still fresh." The woman didn't blink. She didn't look at me. She flipped a page on her clipboard. "The previous owner is deceased." Her tone was flat, bored. "The HOA foreclosed on a lien 3 days ago. The property has been sold to cover outstanding debts." What debts? I felt a strange sensation in my chest. Not anger, not yet. It was confusion. My mother was a woman who balanced her checkbook to the penny every Friday night. She had a filing system that would make the IRS weep. She didn't have debts. She had savings bonds. She had certificates of deposit. She had a mason jar full of quarters for the toll road. "Assessments," the woman said. "Administrative fees. Legal costs." "How much?" I asked. How much could she possibly owe? The woman sighed. It was a long, theatrical sigh, like I was a child asking why I couldn't have candy before dinner. She ran her finger down a spreadsheet. The triggering principal balance, she said, was $4.12. I stared at her mouth. $4? I said. And 12 cents? Plus legal fees, she added quickly. Total judgment is $6,383. The property was auctioned Tuesday on the courthouse steps. The investor paid the judgment amount. My hands started to shake. I wasn't cold. It was 90 degrees out. But I was shivering. I shoved my hands deep into my suit pockets so she wouldn't see. I gripped the lining of my pockets until my knuckles hurt. You sold a house? My voice was trembling. You sold a $500,000 house for $6,000? It's statutory. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were empty, bureaucratic beads. We followed the process. Notices were sent. My mother was in hospice for 6 weeks. I've been collecting her mail. I never saw a notice. Certified mail, she said, refused by recipient. That constitutes service under the bylaws. You have 24 hours to remove personal effects. She turned back to her car. Wait, I said. She paused, hand on the door handle. Who are you? Brenda Vance, she said. HOA president. She got in the car. She didn't look back. She reversed out of the driveway, forcing me to step onto the grass to avoid being hit. I stood there, alone. The orange sticker glared at me. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
To understand why I didn't just break the window right then and there, you have to understand the house, and you have to understand Mary Ellen. The house sits on a limestone ridge in the Texas Hill Country. It's not a mansion. It's 1,850 square feet of brick and memories. My father built the porch himself. He planted those live oaks before he shipped out for Vietnam in '68. He said he wanted something growing that would still be there when he got back. He came back, the trees grew. They covered the roof now, dropping acorns that sounded like gunshots on the metal at night. My mother loved this dirt. She didn't just live here, she stewarded it. If you own the dirt, she used to tell me, usually while we were weeding the vegetable garden, if you own the dirt, you own your freedom. Everything else is just rented. She was a daughter of the Depression. Her father lost his farm in '34. She never forgot it. She kept everything. Receipts, warranties, tax assessments, deeds. I'm a forensic accountant. It's a fancy title for a guy who looks at numbers until they confess. I spent 30 years finding money people tried to hide. I found the offshore accounts for a tech CEO who tried to stiff his employees. I found the shell companies for a construction firm that was laundering drug money. I live in a world of paper trails. And my mother, she was the best archivist I've ever known. Her study was in the back of the house. It was her sanctuary. While other mothers were knitting or watching soap operas, Mary Ellen was filing. 4 filing cabinets, legal size, fireproof, beige metal, dented on the corner from when we moved them in back in '82. She labeled them in her looping cursive script. Property 1970 to 1980, tax receipts, warranties expired, warranties active. So when Brenda Vance told me there was a debt, when she told me my mother had ignored notices, I didn't feel fear. I felt the cold, mechanical curiosity of my profession taking over. I walked around to the back patio. My shoes clicked on the flagstones. My mother kept a spare key inside a fake rock near the garden hose. It was a terrible hiding spot. I'd told her to change it for decades. "Who's going to rob an old lady?" she'd say. Thank God she never listened. I found the rock. It looked more like plastic than stone now, faded by the sun. I turned it over. The key was there. I put it in the back door lock. I held my breath. If they had changed the back locks too. The tumblers turned. The key turned. I opened the door. The alarm started its warning chirp. I walked to the keypad. I punched in the code. Her birthday. Silence. The house was cool. It smelled of lemon pledge and old paper. It smelled like her. I took off my suit jacket. I threw it on the couch. I loosened my tie. I went straight to the study.
The afternoon sun was filtering through the blinds, cutting the dust motes into ribbons of light. The filing cabinets stood like sentinels against the wall. If Brenda Vance foreclosed, there was a paper trail. If there was a paper trail, there was a flaw. I sat down at the mahogany desk. I turned on the banker's lamp. "Okay, Mom," I whispered. "Show me." I started with the checkbook. I pulled the register for the last 2 years. My mother wrote everything down, not just the amount, the date, the check number, the purpose, the weather sometimes. January 1st, check 402, HOA dues, cold morning. February 1st, check 414, HOA dues, rain. I lined up the canceled checks. I laid them out on the desk like a solitaire game. January, paid, cleared. February, paid, cleared. March through August, paid, cleared. Every HOA assessment was exactly $175. Every check was written on the 1st of the month. Every check was mailed on the 2nd. I stared at the ledger for 3 hours. The reception at my sister's house had started and ended. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 4 missed calls. A text from Sarah, my wife. "Where are you? Is everything okay?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was looking for $4.12. I found the discrepancy in the April bank statement. The check for $175 cleared on April 14th, late. The due date was the 5th. I frowned. My mother never paid late. I pulled the April file from the cabinet. There it was, a letter from the bank. "Dear Mrs. Davis, please accept our apologies for the processing delay regarding check 438. Our regional sorting facility experienced a shutdown due to the Easter holiday." My mother hadn't paid late. The bank had processed late. She had even stapled the envelope the apology came in to the letter. I looked at the HOA's ledger, which Brenda had taped to the eviction notice on the front door. April 15th, late fee assessment, $25. Okay, a $25 late fee. Annoying, but not fatal. But then I looked at May. May 1st, payment received, $175. Allocation, $25 to late fee, $150 to principal. They took her May dues and paid off the April late fee first. Remaining principal balance for May, $25. May 15th, late fee assessment, unpaid principal, $25. May 15th, interest on unpaid balance, 43 cents. It was a cascade. Because they applied her next check to the phantom late fee first, every subsequent check was technically short. June, July, August, the balance grew by pennies every month. Interest on interest, fees on fees. By the time she went into hospice in July, the debt was $4.12. I stared at the numbers. My vision blurred. I rubbed my eyes.
Then came the legal fees. Brenda had hired a law firm. $250 for a demand letter, $500 for a title search, $1,500 for a lien filing, $3,500 for foreclosure preparation. They manufactured a $6,000 mountain out of a $4 molehill. But the math wasn't the crime. The math was predatory. It was immoral. But in Texas, under the property code, it was technically legal to apply payments to interest and fees first if the bylaws allowed it. I pulled the bylaws folder. Section 4.2, paragraph C. Payments shall be applied first to interest, then to assessments, then to fines. Brenda had followed the math, but the process, that's where they always slip up. You can steal a house with bad math, but you need perfect paperwork to keep it. I needed an expert. I needed someone who knew where the bodies were buried. I called Robert Davis, no relation to us. Robert was a legend in the county. He was 70 years old, wore suspenders, and drove a truck that had more rust than paint. He was a real estate attorney who didn't defend developers. He sued them. "Robert," I said when he picked up, "is Mark Davis, Mary Ellen's son." "Mark." His voice was gravel. "I heard about your mother. She was a good woman. Finest tomatoes in the county." "Thanks, Robert. Listen, the HOA just seized her house." Silence on the line. "Seized it?" "Foreclosed, while we were at the funeral." "Meet me at the county clerk's office," Robert said. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bring everything." I didn't sleep that night. I slept on the couch in my mother's living room. I didn't want to leave the house. I was afraid if I left, the key wouldn't work when I came back. I woke up at 5 a.m. I made coffee, I sat on the porch and watched the sun come up through the live oaks. "They're not taking this," I said to the trees. "I don't care what it costs. They're not taking this." I met Robert at the courthouse at 7:55 a.m. He looked like a man who had slept in his suit, but his eyes were sharp. "Let's see the file," he said. We sat on a wooden bench outside the records room. I handed him the folder. Robert didn't speak for 20 minutes. He flipped pages with a wet thumb. He adjusted his glasses. He hummed. He frowned. "Here's the problem," Robert said finally. He pointed to a photocopy of a green card, the return receipt for certified mail. "See that?" I looked. It was stamped in red ink. "Return to sender. Unclaimed. Unable to forward." "Texas Property Code, Chapter 209, Robert said. His voice dropped to a whisper, like he was sharing a state secret. "They can foreclose, sure, but they have to prove the owner actually received the notice of their right to cure the debt before they accelerate it." "She didn't receive it," I said. "She was in the hospital." "Right. If the green card comes back unsigned, they have to send it via regular mail. And, this is the kicker, they have to file an affidavit swearing they did so." "Did they?" "They filed the affidavit," Robert said. He pulled a document from the back of the stack. "Affidavit of service." It was signed by Brenda Vance, notarized. "I, Brenda Vance, certify that on July 14th, 2023, I sent notice via regular mail." Robert tapped the date. "July 14th. He paused. He looked at me over his glasses. "You brought her medical records?" "Yes." I pulled the hospital admission summary from my bag. "July 14th, Robert read. "Patient transferred to ICU, sedated." "So she couldn't have checked the mail," I said. "That helps," Robert said, "but it doesn't prove Brenda didn't send it. Brenda can send it to an empty house. That's legal." My heart sank. "But," Robert stood up, "come with me." We walked into the clerk's office. The fluorescent lights were humming. The smell of dust and toner was overwhelming. Robert walked to a computer terminal. "Brenda swears she sent the regular mail follow-up on July 14th because she knew the certified mail had failed," Robert said. "That's the requirement. You only send the regular mail after you know the certified failed." He typed in the tracking number from the unclaimed certified letter. The screen populated, green text on a black background. "Look at the timestamp," Robert said. I leaned in. July 12th, delivery attempted, notice left. July 14th, available for pickup at post office. July 20th, reminder notice generated. July 29th, return to sender, unclaimed. I stared at the dates. "Do you see it?" Robert asked. "July 14th, I whispered. "It was still at the post office." "Exactly," Robert grinned, a shark showing its teeth. "On July 14th, the certified letter was sitting on a shelf at Main Street branch. The post office hadn't returned it yet. They didn't return it until July 29th. The room seemed to get quieter. The hum of the lights faded. "She swore she sent the regular mail follow-up on July 14th because the certified mail had failed," Robert said slowly. "But on July 14th, she couldn't have known it failed. The return receipt hadn't come back yet." She guessed, I said. She anticipated, Robert corrected. She robo-signed. She signed the affidavit claiming she followed the procedure before the procedure was even complete. She just assumed your mother wouldn't pick it up. She lied, I said, on a sworn court document. Perjury, Robert said, and fraud on the court. He took off his glasses and wiped them with a handkerchief. This foreclosure is void. It's not just a mistake, Mark. It's a felony. I felt a weight lift off my chest. So we sue. We could, Robert said. We could file an injunction. We could drag this out. It would take 6 months, cost you 10, maybe 15 grand in fees. The judge would overturn it eventually. Or, Robert smiled, the sale hasn't been ratified yet. Ratified?
The foreclosure sale happened at the courthouse steps, but the HOA board has to vote to accept the final conveyance. They have to transfer the deed at their monthly meeting. It's a formality, a rubber stamp. When is the meeting? Usually the third Thursday of the month, Robert said. I checked my phone. That's tonight. Robert leaned back against the counter. If I file the injunction today, Brenda calls her lawyer. They circle the wagons. They claim it was a clerical error. They backtrack. You get the house, but she keeps her job. He looked at me. What do you want to do? I thought about the orange sticker. I thought about the way she looked at her watch. I thought about $4.12. I don't want to sue, I said. I want to go to the meeting. If I had filed the injunction that morning, I would have saved myself 3 hours of heart palpitations. I would have saved my wife a panic attack. But I wouldn't have seen Brenda's face. I went home. I called Sarah. Get the big printer, I said, and your nice dress. What are we doing? She asked. We're going to war. I spent the next 6 hours in my mother's study. I became her. I organized, I labeled, I cross-referenced. I built the case not like a lawyer, but like a forensic accountant. I made 3 binders. Binder 1, red tabs. The financials, every canceled check, the bank error letter, the ledger showing the compounding pennies. Binder 2, yellow tabs, the pattern. I went online. I pulled the county property records. I searched for Brenda Vance's name. I found 3 other foreclosures in the last 2 years, all signed by her, all with the same affidavit timing. Binder 3, blue tabs, the perjury. The tracking number history enlarged to 11 by 17 size, the affidavit blown up, the dates highlighted in neon yellow. At 6:30 p.m., Sarah arrived. She looked at the binders. She looked at me. You look like you haven't slept, she said. I haven't. She fixed my tie. Are we going to get arrested? Maybe, I said, but not before I say what I need to say. We drove to the community clubhouse. It was a sterile building, beige stucco, fake columns. The parking lot was full. We walked in. The air conditioning was set to Arctic. There were rows of metal folding chairs. About 30 people were there, homeowners, neighbors. At the front, a long table. 5 people sat behind it. Brenda Vance sat in the center. She wasn't wearing the blazer now. She was wearing a floral blouse. But she still had the clipboard. She still had the watch. To her left, a man I recognized from the mailbox, Tom, the treasurer. He looked nervous. He kept tapping his pen on the table. To her right, a younger woman, secretary, and 2 others I didn't know. We sat in the back. The meeting dragged on. They talked about the pool filters. They talked about the landscaping contract. They talked about the color of mulch allowed in the front beds. Black is approved. Brown is a violation. I waited. New business, announced Brenda at 7:45 p.m. Her voice was thin and reedy. Ratification of foreclosure sale, property 412 Oak Ridge. Default amount satisfied via auction. Motion to approve transfer of deed. Second, said one of the board members on the end. Discussion? Brenda asked. She reached for her gavel. It was a reflex. She didn't expect discussion. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the linoleum floor. Heads turned. I have a discussion, I said. Brenda looked up. She squinted. She recognized me. She sighed, a long, tired sigh. Sir, she said, we discussed this in the driveway. The property is sold. This is a board matter. I walked to the front. Sarah followed me, carrying the blue binder. I am the executor of the Mary Ellen Davis estate, I said. My voice was steady. It surprised me. And I am speaking on behalf of the homeowner. The homeowner is deceased, Brenda said. Please sit down or I will have you removed. Tom, she said to the treasurer, call security. Tom reached for his phone. If you call security, I said, looking directly at Tom, I will file a lawsuit tomorrow morning naming you personally for breach of fiduciary duty and civil conspiracy. Tom froze. His hand stopped halfway to his pocket. Excuse me? Tom said. I reached the table. I placed the 3 binders down. Thud, thud, thud. They sounded like heavy stones. The debt, I said, opening the red binder, was $4.12. A murmur went through the room. The neighbors whispered. $4? Someone said in the back. It was created by an accounting error on your end, I continued. You applied payments to phantom late fees first. Here are the canceled checks proving full payment of all principal assessments for 40 years. I slid the checks across the table to Tom. Tom picked them up. He looked at the dates. He frowned. Brenda didn't even look at them. This is irrelevant, Brenda said. She leaned into the microphone. The foreclosure was adjudicated by the county. The board relies on the advice of legal counsel. We followed the statute. She looked at Tom. Tom, we have a motion on the floor. Tom hesitated. The numbers don't match, Brenda, Tom whispered. It doesn't matter if they match, Brenda hissed. The deadline to contest has passed. The sale is final. I opened the blue binder. The sale isn't final if the service was fraudulent, I said. I pulled out the portable projector I had brought. Sarah plugged it into the wall outlet behind the table. A beam of light hit the white wall behind the board. Sir, Brenda stood up, you cannot use AV equipment without prior approval. July 14th, I said, ignoring her. The image appeared on the wall. On the left, Brenda's signed affidavit, date July 14th. On the right, the USPS tracking history, date July 29th. Brenda, I said, pointing at the wall.
You signed a sworn affidavit on July 14th stating that certified mail had failed and you had sent regular mail. But the post office records show the letter was still waiting for pickup on July 14th. The room went dead silent. You couldn't have known it failed, I said, unless you're psychic. Brenda sat down slowly. Her face went pale. That's a clerical error, she stammered. My assistant prepares the dates. It's a typo. It's perjury, I said. I leaned on the table. You robo-signed a foreclosure document on a property with $500,000 in equity over a $4 dispute. You did it while the owner was dying in an ICU. You're emotional, Brenda said. She tried to rally. She stood up again. She looked at the audience, smiling that tight, fake smile. Neighbors, please, this man is grieving. He's confused. Our legal team handles the foreclosure dates. If there was a typo, we will correct it, but the sale stands. The investor has already paid. We cannot reverse a legal sale because of a typo. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. The investor, I said. I opened the yellow binder. "Tom," I said to the treasurer, "you're a CPA, right?" Tom looked at me. Sweat was beading on his forehead. "Yes," Tom said. "The investor who bought my mother's house on the courthouse steps," I said. "LLC Ventures, right?" "I don't know," Tom said. "We don't see the buyer's name until the deed transfer." "I think you do," I said, "because I looked up the corporate filing for LLC Ventures." I pulled the document from the yellow binder. "The registered agent is a James Vance." I looked at Brenda. "Vance," I said. "Any relation, Brenda?" The room erupted. "That's her nephew!" someone shouted from the back. Brenda's eyes darted around the room. "There are many Vances in Texas," she said. "This is a coincidence." Tom looked at the document. His hands were shaking. "Tom," I said softly, "if you vote to ratify this sale, knowing that the president's family member is the buyer and knowing the affidavit was forged, you are facilitating a felony." I paused. "I will report you to the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy by 9 a.m. tomorrow. You'll lose your license, Tom." Tom closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Brenda grabbed his arm. "Tom, don't listen to him. We have a fiduciary duty to collect the debt." Tom pulled his arm away. He looked at the red binder. He looked at the projected dates. He looked at me. I can't do this, Brenda." Tom closed the red binder. He pushed it back toward me. "Motion to rescind the sale of 412 Oak Ridge immediately due to procedural errors and conflict of interest." "Second," said the young secretary. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else on earth. "All in favor?" Tom asked. He raised his hand. The secretary raised hers. The other two raised theirs. 4 hands.
Brenda didn't move. She just stared at the projected dates on the wall. Her own signature, 10 feet tall, looming over her. "Motion carries," Tom said. He looked at me. He looked sick. "We'll need a week to process the rescission with the county." "You have 24 hours, I said, "or I call the district attorney." We walked out. The crowd parted for us like we were royalty. "Thank you," the woman in the second row whispered as I passed. We got in the car. My hands started shaking again, the adrenaline crash. Sarah took my hand. "You got it back," she said. "Yeah," I said, "I got it back." They did it in 12 hours. The rescission of foreclosure was filed the next morning at 9 a.m. Brenda resigned 2 weeks later. Health reasons, the newsletter said. The district attorney did open an investigation. It turned out James Vance had bought 4 properties in the neighborhood for pennies on the dollar. They're still unwinding that mess, but I don't care about Brenda. I sat on the back porch this morning. It's October now. The air is finally crisp. The coffee was hot in my mug. The sun was coming up through the live oaks, casting those long, spindly shadows across the grass. The squirrels were burying acorns. I went into the study. I opened the filing cabinet. Top drawer. I took the rescission of foreclosure document. It was stamped and official. I filed it right behind my mother's deed. I labeled the folder, "The $4.12 War." Sarah asked me if I was going to sell the place. The market is high. It's too much house for just us. The maintenance is a lot. The leaves alone take 3 weekends to rake. I looked at the filing cabinets. I looked at the trees my father planted. I looked at the dirt. My mother was right. If you own the dirt, you own your freedom. And nobody was taking ours for $4. "No," I said. "I think I'll keep the dirt."